Hi, I'm Bisma, and you're listening to The Other C Word, a podcast about all things cancer from a stage 4 breast cancer warrior. We cover health and wellness, mind, body, and soul. Plan to leave each episode with hopefully some new insights and inspiration. Let's get into this week's episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Today's episode, we're diving into a topic that is very close to my heart, which is how to support someone with cancer. Also, I want to apologize for my strange voice. I've been pretty sick this last week. And of course, as you probably know, when you're going through cancer treatments, what may be a common cold or flu for some can be quite awful for you when you're immunocompromised. Okay, so whether you're a friend, a family member, or just someone who cares, knowing how to offer the right kind of support to someone with cancer can make a world of difference. And if you're living with cancer yourself, this is a great episode to listen to with your family and friends, or send their way so that they can help better support you. Now, supporting someone with cancer can be challenging, to say the least. It's emotional, and there are often more questions than there are answers. But today, I want to try to break it down and share some insights that I hope will be helpful. So I want to discuss showing support in 5 different categories. And those categories are 1, emotional and spiritual support; 2, practical and physical support; 3, financial support; 4, educational and advocacy support; and 5, social support. First up is emotional and spiritual support. When someone receives a cancer diagnosis, it's like your entire world is turned upside down. Everything you thought or knew feels like it's being taken away from you. You're dealing with a mix of emotions: fear, anger, sadness, confusion, maybe some blame or shame. And often all these feelings are coming all at once. I think first and foremost, as a supporter, it's important to be there for that person emotionally. This means listening, truly listening, without trying to fix their problems or rush them through their feelings. I'm going to repeat that part. You're not trying to fix their problems. You're there to support them. So, for example, you might send a text that says something like, "I'm here for you whenever you need to talk, cry, or vent, or just sit in silence. I'm just a call or FaceTime away." Or you could write a heartfelt handwritten note, letting them know that you're thinking of them and offering to help in any way that they need. Handwritten notes can be so special. I know it's one of the things that I personally have loved receiving the most. So when you think of emotional support, think of your role is to provide comfort and space where they can express themselves without judgment. Sometimes all they're going to need is someone to sit with them in silence, hold their hand, and let them know that they're not alone. And it's 1000% okay if they need to cry or if they're feeling upset and in pain, anger, all of those things. Allow them to express their emotions fully, and remember that it's not about making things better immediately, it's about being there for them. Sometimes it's really just as simple as about being present and sitting with them in those low moments. Saying things like, "stay strong," or "you have to fight this," I personally think are really dumb things to say to someone with cancer. That's my personal opinion. I think there's a lot more helpful things that you can say. For instance, I think something like, "hey, it's totally okay to feel however you're feeling right now. I'm here for you no matter what." I think something like that gives them that open space to express themselves instead of using buzzwords for cancer, like fighting or being strong. And sometimes they may be short with you or they may seem distant. Maybe they'll say something like, "you don't get it," or "you don't understand what I'm going through." I think in those moments, it's best to exercise a lot of empathy and not react to what they're saying. You could say something like, "you're right, I can't imagine what you must be feeling right now, but I'm not going anywhere and I'm here with you." Do not say anything about how you are affected by their cancer diagnosis or how sad it is making you. This isn't about you. I repeat, this is not about you. This is a time for you to be strong for them. And I think as much as you can remember that, the better it'll be. Also, I think understanding that their pain and frustration might come out in ways that aren't directed at you, but are simply part of their emotional process and them grieving the loss of the life that they thought that they had. And I want to acknowledge that sometimes you unfortunately may be talked to in a not nice manner from that person. I think it's really important to be the bigger person, don't react, and just have empathy that they are really struggling right now, but this will get better with time. Now, when it comes to spiritual support, this can vary greatly depending on the person's individual beliefs. Some people find comfort in prayer or meditation or other spiritual practices. If they are religious, offering to pray for them or pray with them or connecting them with a priest, a rabbi, an imam can be incredibly comforting. You might want to ask them, hey, is it okay if I have a group prayer for you? Maybe in person or on Zoom. I personally believe in the power of group prayer, and I also think it provides comfort to those supporting to feel connected with each other. I think spiritual support can also extend into helping them explore and make peace with existential questions. Cancer really does bring you face to face with your own mortality, and that can be extremely scary. So I think help them navigate these thoughts and feelings, whether by discussing their beliefs, reading together from a religious text, or even just providing a listening ear as they work through their thoughts. That can offer a great deal of comfort. Let's say they do bring up their fear around death or potentially dying. Let them express those fears, saying things like, oh, don't think about that, or don't even say that, I think can be highly hurtful to hear, and it makes you feel more alone and isolated. And it honestly kind of indicates that you are actually in a place of denial of the severity of the situation and the diagnosis. So I would say don't shut down those conversations if they come up, embrace them and be a support for them. And then lastly, I will say related to emotional and spiritual support, try not to forget about the power of empathy. By putting yourself in their shoes, even if it's just for a moment, can help you understand what they might be going through. It's not about having all the answers. It's about showing compassion and letting them know that they don't have to go through this alone. Okay, next, let's talk about practical and physical support. Cancer takes a major toll on the body. So this is where the practical and physical support becomes crucial. Living with cancer often means dealing with physical exhaustion, frequent doctor's visits, and the side effects of treatments like chemotherapy, radiation, or recovering from a surgery. It can be so overwhelming to manage all of that on top of everyday responsibilities like a house, a spouse, kids, etc. So what can you do? Let's start with practical help. You could offer to drive them to doctor's appointments. You could cook meals and drop them off for them. You could help around with household chores. Maybe you could take their kids out for a few hours on the weekends. For instance, for meals, there's this great website called Meal Train that you can organize with friends and family and take turns preparing and dropping off food. This way they have like one less thing to worry about, and it can help maintain this sense of normalcy that they're not having to constantly order in or eat out, and they have home-cooked meals. I definitely recommend checking out the Meal Train website to get started. It's super easy to use, and you can plan with family or friends who's providing meals what days. You can also do things like gift cards to DoorDash or Uber Eats if they do want to order in from a restaurant. I think related to providing food, I think it's always best to have one person that's the point of contact with the person or the family so that they're not having to deal with a bunch of people calling and texting. And that way, that point of contact can communicate info from the family to the wider group of friends and family in the community. Also, I want to say that practical support isn't just about doing things for them. It's also about helping them maintain a sense of normalcy and control over their own lives. So for example, you could assist them in organizing their schedule or managing their medications, offering to help with tasks like grocery shopping, cleaning, or even simple things like picking up prescriptions. That can definitely ease their daily load. In my experience, I've learned that it's best to offer up specific tasks to the person instead of broad general statements like, hey, let me know what I can help with. So let's say you're coming over to see a friend or family member with cancer. Text them the day before and say, hey, do you need to refill any prescriptions? I can pick them up on my way over tomorrow. Or you could say, hey, are there any foods you're not eating right now? I'm going to do a basic grocery grab on my way over before I come over. What you're doing here is that you're telling them what you're going to be doing for them instead of asking them, what should I do? And I think when you do that, it reduces the burden on them to come up with things for you to do. So now when it comes to physical support, this might involve helping them manage the side effects of treatments. So for example, someone undergoing chemo might experience nausea, fatigue, or even difficulty with mobility and moving around. So what you could do is help them with tasks like getting around the house, preparing gentle, nutritious meals, or even just sitting with them during their treatment sessions. That can provide such a much needed sense of comfort and care. For me, like I've gotten really into juicing and smoothies. So if a friend comes over and offers to help me make juice shots, like that is so helpful for me. So just, keep a lookout for what that person's trying to do with their food and diet and just see if there's any ways that you could help out there. I think another thing you could do is you can also help them stay active. That's super important while you're going through treatments. And even if it's just like a short walk around the block or some gentle stretching inside the house, exercise can be incredibly beneficial for both physical and mental health. And unfortunately, when you're going through these treatments yourself, it's often hard to find that motivation to go and do those things. But having someone by your side, encouraging you and making it even a social activity can make all of the difference. I remember for me during my early days when I got discharged from the hospital and I was on a walker, I just felt super depressed and down with like the state of my life that I was in. But having family and friends there to help me with the little things like walking me to the bathroom or making sure I was drinking enough water or going on walks with me around the house or the apartment hallway, it just made all of the difference for me. And also, I think practical support can also extend to logistics of treatments. So things like keeping track of appointments, medication doses, frequencies, doctor's instructions, all of that can be really overwhelming. So if you can help out with that, that's amazing. You could help to organize this information for them, or you could even accompany them to appointments and you could take notes for them. All of that eases a lot of stress. There's journals on Amazon that you can buy for organizing medical notes or planners for keeping track of appointments. And there's also medication logs. There's really amazing tools out there. And these can also be like small gifts that you can get them, which are highly useful. I remember I actually had a friend buy me whiteboards so that I could put them around the house with my medication list and the timing so I wouldn't get confused what I needed to take and when, because it's just so overwhelming, the amount of stuff that you have to take. I think the key with physical support is that you want to be proactive, but also be respectful of their space and independence. Some people may want a lot of help and others may want to do as much as they can on their own. The best approach, I think, is to ask and pay attention, be attentive to their needs, and also know that you'll need to adapt as those needs change over time, which they definitely will. Okay, let's move on to financial support. Cancer is not only emotionally and physically draining, it's also a massive financial burden. Medical bills, treatment costs, time off of work, it all adds up really quickly. And financial stress can be highly overwhelming. And this is where financial support from friends, family, the community can be such a lifeline. And I will say, even if you think that, they seem to be doing well financially, they probably don't need help, it's such a massive hit expenses-wise that there's likely few people that wouldn't need some sort of support and would probably happily welcome it. My first treatment that I was on, it was costing over $30,000 a month. And thank God my insurance covered most of it, but I honestly don't know what we would have done if that wasn't the case. Also, there are a lot of expenses outside of medication and the surgery or chemo that if you have insurance would be covered. So things like fueling your body for recovery, groceries, supplements, holistic treatments, those are all super expensive. So I would say if you're in a position to do so, you could offer direct financial assistance to that person or their family to alleviate some of that burden for them. And this could be as simple as covering the cost of a medication, paying for groceries, meal services, or contributing to a larger expense item like medical equipment that they may need for the house or something for mobility like a wheelchair, a walker, a cane, things like that. And I do want to say that offering financial support isn't just about the money. It's about offering relief from that stress and anxiety that all of those financial burdens can cause. It's about giving them one less thing to worry about so that they can focus on their health and well-being and ultimately getting better. And it's totally okay if you're not in a position to offer direct financial help. There's still so many other ways to provide that support. You can organize a fundraiser and rally the larger community to all put their funds together and help out. For example, you could set up a GoFundMe page to help cover medical expenses or daily needs. And you may or may not know, but I actually do work at GoFundMe myself, and I can tell you what an amazing platform it is for raising funds. It's super easy to use. There aren't any fees. And it's such a great way to quickly mobilize support from the larger network and community. It honestly takes just a few minutes to set up a GoFundMe. And if you run into any issues, please feel free to DM me. I'm happy to help out. Another thing that I think can also be done is that you can help to support that person or that family with looking into financial aid options, things like grants, or maybe there's insurance benefits that they may not be aware of or utilizing. I think navigating these options can be pretty overwhelming, especially when you're not feeling well with your treatments. So offering to research or assist with applications can be so helpful. Another thing you could consider offering support with is something like financial planning or budgeting. Cancer treatments and the associated costs can be unpredictable as far as like timing of when they come in. And having a plan in place can provide some stability there. So if you're someone who manages your own household expenses, you can offer to help them set up a system to manage their bills, keep track of expenses. It's really about giving them the tools and support that they need to navigate this challenging aspect of the journey. I think it's also super important to approach financial support with sensitivity. Money is a tough topic for most of us, and not everyone is comfortable discussing their financial situation. The best way, I think, to offer help is be gentle, be discreet, and make sure that they know that the offer is there without putting them in any uncomfortable position. Okay, so that's financial support. Now I want to talk a little bit about educational and advocacy support, which I think is often overlooked. When you're diagnosed with cancer, suddenly you're thrust into this world of like medical jargon, complex treatment options. It's like a flood of information. It's highly overwhelming to process. And I think this is where someone from the outside can help and come in and provide that educational support. You could help them with understanding their diagnosis, their treatment options, potential side effects. Those are all super valuable. For example, you might offer to help them research their specific type of cancer and the latest treatment options. You could say something like, hey, I found some articles and resources that explain your diagnosis and treatment options. Do you want me to share them with you or help you go through them? Or do you want me to send you a summary of what I've learned? I think all of those would be very much welcomed. And I think also providing educational support can be things like helping them prepare for doctor's appointments. So this could be something like helping them create a list of questions to ask their oncologist, or even attending appointments with them to take notes for them and remember important information. You could say something like, hey, I'd be happy to come with you to your next appointment if you want. I can keep track of what the doctor says and make sure you have all your questions answered. I know for me, I personally feel like if I don't have my questions written out, I get really anxious in the moment and then I forget what I wanted to talk about. So it's always helpful for me to have someone in the room with me that also has a list of questions and they can be like, oh, hey, you also wanted to ask about X, Y, and Z. And that'll prompt me to remember that. Okay, so in addition to education, I think advocacy is another key aspect here. So this involves helping them navigate the healthcare system, understanding their rights, and making sure that they have access to the best possible care. So I think what you could do here is that you can do some research and find some patient advocacy organizations or support groups that are specific to their type of cancer. And I think the way to present that to them would be like, hey, I did some research and I found this support group that maybe could be really helpful for you. Do you want me to find out more about it? Do you want me to go to the session with you? And I think advocacy also involves assisting with insurance claims, understanding coverage, or also exploring alternative treatments. All of the paperwork involved with this is highly overwhelming. And I know I've used the word overwhelming so many times during this, but that's what it is. It's just all too much to handle for one person. So the more you can step in and help out, the better. And it really comes down to you want them to feel like you're standing by their side and making sure that their needs and preferences are communicated within the healthcare system. Because it's often the case that when you're the one going through it and you're not feeling well, it's hard to remember these things and advocate for yourself. Most hospitals and healthcare systems have social workers or caseworkers. So you can ask them like, hey, is it okay if I call one of the social workers and we can talk to them together about if there are any possible extra resources that we may not know about? Another way to provide advocacy support is by being a voice for them in situations where they may not feel well enough or up to it to speak up for themselves. So for example, let's say they're trying to get a second opinion or access a certain treatment. You could offer to help them make calls or send emails and get them connected to the right people. I think educational and advocacy support isn't just about the information. It's about making that person feel empowered. And it's about giving them the tools that they need to make informed decisions and ensuring that they receive the care and the respect that they deserve. Because even though we live in America and sometimes it doesn't feel like it, equal healthcare should be accessible to all. But unfortunately, you often have to go fight for it. Okay, finally, let's talk about social support. During cancer treatment, people often feel isolated and disconnected from their usual social circles. This is where social support comes in, and helping them stay connected and feel a part of their community can be incredibly uplifting and so important. So you can start by reaching out regularly. I think a simple text or a call can mean a lot. For example, you could text something like, hey, I've been thinking of you. How are you doing today? Or I'd love to catch up if you're up for a chat. Let me know when you're free. Regular contact can help them feel less alone and remind them that they're surrounded by people who care. And I would say don't be offended if they don't respond right away. They're dealing with cancer. They have a lot on their plate. I know for me, unless I happen to be on my phone, I may see a text hours later. And then if I'm not feeling well at that time, I'll think to myself to respond later, and sometimes I forget. But I still love reading those messages, and it makes me so happy to know that people care about me and are thinking about me. And most of my friends have figured out by now that if they text me again in a day or two, that double ping will usually prompt me to respond. Okay, and on top of like texting or calling, I think organizing some sort of social activity can also be a great way to provide social support. This could be as simple as arranging a virtual game night, a movie, or even a small get-together if they're up for it. Think back to the pandemic days and how crafty we all got with staying in touch with each other. The point here is really about providing a sense of normalcy and connection. So, for example, you might text them and say something like, hey, how about we set up a virtual movie night this weekend? We can all watch it together and catch up. Social support also involves celebrating milestones and special occasions. Remember their birthday, anniversaries, or treatment completion dates, or even the dates of regular doctor's appointments. If you're talking with them and they mention a doctor's appointment coming soon, put it in your calendar. And when that day comes up, text them a, hey, good luck. I hope everything goes well today. Trust me, they're totally going to love that. You could also organize a surprise party or send them a thoughtful gift on important days. Again, I think a handwritten card or a small gift like a cozy blanket or a heating pad or a book, it can be such a lovely gesture, and it just shows that you're thinking of them. You could also offer to help them stay connected with friends and family. That can be super valuable. So you could do something like setting up a group chat or coordinating visits from other loved ones, just ensuring that they're, continuously surrounded by people who care. You could say something like, hey, do you want me to organize a group chat or Zoom with our friends? It'd be a nice way to catch up with everyone. Another way that you can show social support is that you can encourage them to do the activities that they used to do before, even though they probably can't fully participate like they used to. It's still something that will help them get back into that rhythm. And you can offer to accompany them to those activities. I remember early days of the diagnosis for me, friends would come over and they would offer to go to this food truck park near our house. And while it was such a simple, low-key activity, it clearly, to this day, has still stuck in my mind as something I really enjoyed doing during that time. And I'm so grateful for those friends that came over and just got me out of the house to go do that. I think social support is really about maintaining and hopefully even enhancing those social connections that they have and making sure that they feel loved and valued. And especially on those really tough days, that becomes so important. I'm also big into board games and game nights. And I remember for me looking forward to friends coming over and us just playing, Rummy Cube or cards or blank slate together. When you get sick and you're confined to your house all the time, it feels very isolating. And having friends and family that come over and are with you in your place and just laughing and playing a game together can have such a huge impact to your mental health, which is so important. All right, guys, I think with that wraps up today's episode on supporting someone with cancer. We've covered emotional and spiritual support, practical and physical support, financial support, educational and advocacy support, and social support. So each of these areas plays a crucial role in helping someone through their cancer journey. Remember, the key is to be there in whatever way you can and to adapt your support as their needs change.
Thanks for listening to The Other C Word, hosted by Bisma. New episodes drop Mondays. Connect with me on socials at Bisma, and let's all learn, grow, and inspire each other.